Hello and welcome to another video of trucking history. Today I want to talk about trucking in North Carolina. There was a city in North Carolina that was very prominent in trucking history. I'm not talking about Charlotte. Although eventually the topic will involve Charlotte. But I'm talking about a much smaller city in North Carolina, one that figured so prominently in the history of the trucking industry that it will forever be known as the birthplace of one of the largest trucking companies in the country at one time. What city am I talking about? I'm talking about Burlington. Now, most people would not even have heard of Burlington, North Carolina. It's in the central part of the state. It's along Interstate 85, although when I'm talking about 85 was not even thought of yet. We're talking about the days of U.S. highways. U.S. Highway 70 ran right through Burlington. Burlington is between Greensboro and Raleigh. Now, there was two brothers. Their names were R.W. Barnwell and James A. Barnwell. They started a trucking company called Barnwell Brothers in 1930. They bought one truck. They both were drivers. They went to New York and brought back a load of imported rayon fabric from Germany to the mills in Burlington and other places in North Carolina. In North Carolina, in the 30s, textiles were big. It was a big industry. In fact, if you've ever heard of the name of a big textile manufacturer called Burlington Industries, that's Burlington. So, in 1930, they go up to New York. They bring back a load of imported rayon from Germany. Things were good. In fact, another textile plant was opened in Burlington because of the availability of this rayon fabric from Germany. 60 days later, the government of the United States imposed a tariff on imported rayon from Germany. All of a sudden, imported rayon from Germany stopped coming. They had a problem. The Barnwell Brothers, their freight from New York all of a sudden dried up. What did they do? They got into the general trucking business, hauling general commodities, hauling whatever they could between New York and North Carolina. They incorporated in North Carolina with an initial capital of I know I found that, but I don't seem to find it now. Oh, they incorporated in North Carolina in September 1930 with $25,000 of capital. Sorry, I've got a lot of notes here. So they were in business, Barnwell Brothers Incorporated. Things got good. The next year, they opened up a small office in New York City. And by talking small, we are talking very small. The size of the first office in New York City was only 10 feet by 30 feet in size. That's all they needed. However, things grew. By 1939 in New York, they had expanded to a 6-story building at 490 Greenwich Street with a total size of 80,000 square feet. So in 8 years, they went from 300 square feet to 80,000. Things were good. Okay. In 1935, they merged with K&S Trucking Company in North Carolina. Now, Barnwell Brothers at the time already had 100 trucks. This was in 1935. Things had expanded greatly. 10 trucks were added to the fleet by merging with K&S Trucking. Now, I have not been able to find out much about K&S Trucking other than K&S was incorporated in North Carolina in December of 1930 with $100,000 of capital. By 1939, Barnwell Brothers had 150 trucks roaming the highways. Their terminals were in Burlington, Charlotte, Shelby, Lynchburg, Virginia, Charlottesville, Virginia, Alexandria, Virginia, Baltimore, Maryland, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Newark, New Jersey, Scranton, Pennsylvania, Cumberland, Maryland, and New York City. 12 terminals by 1939. In October 1936, their terminal in Burlington had outgrown. They originally were on Hawkins Street. In 1936, they bought 5 acres of land 2 miles east of Burlington for a new terminal. This would have been squarely on U.S. Highway 70, at that time known as Church Street. Also in 1938, they acquired Virginia Motor Lines of New York City. Again, I have not been able to find out much about Virginia Motor Lines. Just the name itself would mean they were transporting between the states of Virginia and New York City. That's an assumption. I don't know for sure, so I'm only speculating here. But anyway, Barnwell Brothers Incorporated of Burlington expanded. They built a new terminal in 1940 in Charlotte, North Carolina on South Clarkston Street. And it was right across the street from another North Carolina trucking company called Horton Motor Lines. Horton was based in Charlotte. There's a connection between Horton and Barnwell that's coming. Now, the terminal in Charlotte was 38 doors. Rather big in 1940. Now here comes the good part. Barnwell Brothers and Horton Motor Lines and 5 other companies formed in 1942 to become Associated Transport, which immediately became the nation's biggest trucking company. Now, among the other companies that were formed together was Consolidated Motor Lines in New England. They were based in Hartford, Connecticut. M. Moran Transportation Lines in Buffalo, New York. Southeastern Motor Lines based out of Bristol, Virginia. And there were some smaller ones. But all 5 combined to become Associated Transport. What happened to Associated in Burlington? Well, there was a big fire that destroyed the terminal in Burlington. They needed to rebuild. They did. Years later, they were trying to find land for a much larger terminal. The new terminal that they had built after the fire was surrounded by residential. To expand, they wanted to buy some of those residential lots. There was one person that would not sell. so Associated needed that land, and they couldn't buy it. And there was a time when Associated was thinking of moving westward toward Greensboro for a major breakbulk terminal. You see, when Associated was formed, Burlington became the southern division for Associated Transport, originally in Charlotte at the terminal on Clarkston. In the early 1960s, Associated was definitely considering leaving Burlington and taking all the jobs with it because they were a major employer in Burlington at the time. The Chamber of Commerce all got together and they were trying to help Associated to stay. They found land on North Carolina Highway 62 at the interchange with what had become Interstate 85. They bought the land and Associated stayed in Burlington. It was a massive terminal. It was a huge 100-door terminal with a large building for maintenance of the fleet, and they stayed. The terminal they moved the southern division of Associated Transport from Charlotte to the Burlington terminal. When Associated left Clarkson Street, guess who got the terminal? Acres Motor Lines. Acres Motor Lines had been on Calvert Street in Charlotte, needed to expand more, so when Associated left the old Barnwell terminal on Clarkston Street, Acres got it. Until Acres built that massive terminal themselves on Little Rock Road at Interstate 85. But that's another story. We're talking about Associated. Associated became the biggest carrier in the nation. They had financial problems, and in the 70s, they had to shut down. They filed bankruptcy. At that time, they were controlled by Eastern Freightways, but it couldn't be saved. So Associated went out. They went bye-bye, auctioned off all their equipment. And what happened to the terminal in Burlington? It became an outlet mall. It was a good one. Huge outlet mall. And the maintenance shops became a huge store under the name of Waccamaw Pottery, which was a chain of stores selling pottery, household items, and the like. It was a big store. Now, it's no longer the same outlet mall. Outlet malls in North Carolina became big business. The one that was at the old Associated barn moved eastward to another little town called Mebane, and what is the old Associated barn now is called JR's. It's still a discount store, but not in the sense that it was. So that's what happened with Barnwell Brothers, the history of Barnwell Brothers, and how it became Associated Transport. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Hope you've learned something. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one.